Hi, my name is Presley Rodas,
And I am Sky McMillan.
and today we're going to talk about how the media communicates certain investigations, missing people, shootings, stuff like that. Our main focus is going to be on the University of Idaho killing murder case. Um, so, something I learned, Sky, was through Fox News, which I sent you the link to. I think the most important and interesting fact was this um what is it? Um like tragic killing happened on November 13th. And one thing I noticed was the sheriff along with one of the same newscasters, and I'll have to go back and look for her name, have reported and updated constantly and through different like press conferences and interviews, their demeanor has changed so much. The sheriff in the first few like interviews, which like obviously like there is a investigation going on, there was a murder, everything like that. Like it was intense in the beginning, but I feel even like a week ago when they were updating people, his demeanor changed and his body language changed on how he was answering questions, and then even his demeanor and body language changed yesterday when I watched a press conference with updates with how
Mhm.
like I think they know what's happening, and I think they have more evidence than they're letting us know about, obviously, because
Yeah.
the murder is still at large. But I think it's interesting with like how his demeanor changed with like small information, especially if we're
Mhm.
not supposed to know, if they don't want it to get out.
Yes.
And then something else I thought was interesting was their the families of the four students were able to receive their belongings, but only a few. So they gave police officers a list of items that they wanted like for closure, um,
Mhm.
and like to help with grief and stuff. And I thought it was interesting because they were like, they walked into the crime scene, and it's still an active crime scene. They walked in and gave over like all the information they had that they could, and were able to grab a few things. But I think it's so interesting that like they were able to give all that stuff back right away.
Yeah. And not kind of like wait for kind of like the case to be solved, I guess, to
Yeah.
give that back, I guess. I feel like that would make the most logical sense. I just think this case is interesting because how I feel like it's just been going like ongoing and we still haven't had any answers, but we're giving all these pieces of information and it's still like we still have no answer to who the murderer is. And it's probably been about,
Month.
I want to say 3 to 4 weeks, and it's
Mhm.
just like it's still ongoing, which with other cases, I feel like we know who the murderer is a lot faster. I just don't understand why this case could be going on for so long.
Yeah.
And I was looking on Twitter and I saw this one video and it was of one of the suspects and his name is Jack and he's in a frat at University of Idaho, and it was just saying how he was at the grub truck with the two girls, and I don't remember what their names were. I want to say it was Maddie and Kaylee. And
Yes.
so they were getting food after a night out and Jack was there, and
Mhm.
it was just interesting to see the body language of the girls versus the body language of the guy, just
Mhm.
because you could tell like they wanted to get out of there quick. They obviously turned around and said not nice words to him just because I don't think they really liked him or probably didn't respect him. And so it's interesting to see how they kind of like sprinted out of the little scene area that I saw on video, and then him not even getting any food. He just shrugged his shoulders and was like, "Oh, like they forgot me," type of thing, and then followed after them, which was like really interesting to see because it looked like it was kind of set up. I'm not sure, but based on the information I found out about Jack,
Mhm.
He was kicked out of his frat for anger issues, and he was kicked out of corner club for being creepy with girls. So I can understand why they might feel a certain way towards him, just
Yeah.
because I wouldn't want to be by a person that's kicked out of frat or like kicked out of a club at University of Idaho.
Mhm.
And apparently he has like lots of knives and like a lot of hunting pics on his Instagram. And
Mhm.
he was one of the last people to see the two girls alive. And then, which also was interesting, was he fled to his cabin, which was 5 hours away right after the whole situation happened, which I thought was like interesting. Usually you don't do that
Yeah.
if something like that big happens. Like
And
that's
you're
just not like,
innocent.
you're not like, oh my gosh, I need to go to my parents' cabin at 2 o'clock in the morning. Like that's just like crazy to me. So I just think like finding out that information, I'm like, oh my goodness, this is good information. And I kind of wonder like who they think who it possibly could be, because I know they let him off the suspect list. Like he's no longer like a suspect. They kind of let him go. So I'm wondering if it's because of his parents.
Mm.
And because I think they were two doctors. So I know they're able to like probably talk their way out of probably what their son did. But at the end, I don't know, because we don't know who the murderer is still. Like it's still an ongoing case, which is just crazy to me. But yeah.
I think that's super interesting because one, his Instagram showed like a potential murder weapon or the type of murder weapon that was used.
Yes.
But I also watched the same clip and I heard a different story from it. So I saw
Mhm.
the clip with the Grubhub truck and they said that Jack was friends with one of the girl's boyfriends who was out of town. And so he knew they were drinking because he was at the same party with them and wanted to make sure they got home safely. So when they kind of like scurried off and didn't say bye to him and he turned around and like raised his hands, like he was just kind of like, oh, okay, thanks for saying bye. And I was like, that makes sense. But I didn't know about the Instagram either. And
Yes.
the hunting or the cabin, anything like that. But
Yeah.
it makes me curious because I don't know if you heard about this. Um, so a neighbor recently said that they saw the front door open, which now like
Yes.
changes everything. But I was looking at it last night, because I've just been so intrigued because when my friends came home for Thanksgiving, this is all we could talk about.
Hmm.
And I was just like digging deeper into it. And I was like, why is this like so big? Obviously, I read a few articles and I was like, this is terrible. Obviously, that's why it's so big. But last night I was scrolling through TikTok because this case has like overtaken my TikTok, my social media, my Twitter, Facebook, um, even like Reddit and everything. And
Yeah.
I actually learned that there was a University of Virginia shooting the same weekend, the same day. So
Yes.
the University of Idaho was from November 12th, was the party, and then the four were killed on November 13th at like
Yes.
between 3 and 4 a.m.
Hmm.
Well, in an NBC like video news update, there was a suspect named Christopher Jones. He's a former football player with University of Virginia, and he was the active shooter um at the university. And there was a shelter in place for 10 hours, but I had no idea until last night, and I was like digging deep into the Idaho one. So I
Yeah.
wonder how like I wasn't informed about that, I guess, or like that
Yeah.
wasn't talked about more because then once I clicked on the little like hashtag for the UVA, I think that's the acronym for it, like
Yeah.
there were so many videos, but I had to like dig deep into
Yes.
that. And I also think that it's interesting that like, yes, that was a shooting and this one was a stabbing, but like both
Hmm.
the same weekend, both university, like big universities.
Yes.
Um, this one, University of Virginia, was Christopher Jones was a black man and he ended up killing three other black men. So now I'm questioning like, could it be a race thing that the media didn't make it as big of a deal? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's why it like intrigued me. And then it also made me think of something that happened in COVID. Did you ever hear of Gabby Petito?
I heard a little bit about it, but I don't know that much information about that case.
Okay, so Gabby Petito was a young girl who like took social media by storm and TikTok specifically. Everyone was updated about Gabby Petito within days. And so what happened was she was traveling the world, sorry, the country with be nice to travel the world. Traveling the country with her boyfriend in their like RV,
Yeah.
and she was talking to her mom daily, everything like that, and she ended up dying. She was murdered by her
Yes.
boyfriend, but her boyfriend kept posting pictures on her Instagram as her, would text her mom, never answered a phone call again. And then her mom and her dad reported her missing because her mom was like, this isn't right. This doesn't seem like Gabby.
Yeah.
And ended up fleeing to his parents' house. It was this huge thing. Well, all while this is happening, her parents go to the police, go to the news, go to anyone that they could reach. Like, I'm pretty sure they had some money. And I'm not saying they had money, like, that was the only reason they were
Yeah.
able to get to the news. But it was just like a huge thing. And so then what happened, there was this little boy, during the same time he went missing and he was also murdered, but
Yes.
his family was unable to like get the help they needed, and nobody had heard about it until months later.
That's crazy.
Like, Gabby Petito was like, most of it was solved, the whole
Yeah.
world was following, and this little boy like in a, like, I believe it was a city maybe like 100 miles away from where everything was happening with Gabby Petito,
Yeah.
and like no one knew besides that small city. And so I wonder then too, like,
Wow.
was that like a race thing? Was that like he's younger, he was on social media, his mom
Yeah.
didn't have, you know what I mean? Like, was it class? Was it race? Was it like, why was the media not covering that?
Yeah.
And so I feel like I found that out so late. And I also found out about the University of Virginia last night when it happened November 13th. So I'm like, why am I not
Yeah.
hearing about that when it happened the same weekend as the Idaho one?
Idaho one, which is a crazy. I feel like the only reason why I found out about the Virginia shooting was because I was seeing Instagram stories from athletes that I knew that went there, and they were posting about their friends that actually got killed in that shooting. But the crazy part is I want to say I didn't find out any information about that shooting until probably a week later on TikTok, where there was a recorded news segment, I want to say from Fox News, and it was just like how the professor was talking about how she was bringing the kids in her class on
Mhm.
a field trip, and it was just supposed to be like a nice like field trip. It was with a group of Black kids because I think it was a club or something,
Mhm.
and it was just interesting to hear what the professor had to say, just because she noticed that one the killer, the murderer, who was like an ex-football player on Virginia. I don't know if you knew that, but he actually
Mhm.
played on the Virginia football team and then got kicked off the football
Oh,
team. I forget what the reason was, but he was kicked off of the football team, and I think that was like one of his motives to kill those three football players.
this year he was kicked off?
No, when he was a freshman, and I'm pretty sure he's a senior right now. So
Oh,
this happened. This has been like, I think, like built up anger, and he was like, I just need to do
yeah.
something about it now, I guess. And so he thought that was the perfect time to do it. And
Yeah.
it's just crazy because the professor said that I forget what his name is, the murderer
Uh,
was distancing himself.
Christopher?
Christopher? Is
Yeah,
that his
Jones?
name? Okay.
I think so.
Christopher, he was distancing himself from the whole group. When they were in the bus, he sat separately by himself. Those three football players were being so kind to him. Everybody was trying to be like super nice and like warm, welcoming. And he was just like, just sitting by himself, not really paying attention. just keeping to himself pretty much. And I think they went to a play, but even at the play, the professor said that he was acting a little like interesting, kind of just distancing himself from the whole group again. And then I watched another video, and it was one of the students that was on the bus,
Mhm.
and how she said she heard the gunshots and she thought it was something else. She didn't realize it was gunshots because it was like, why would there be gunshots on a bus? Like, that's not the first thing you immediately think. I think she thought fireworks were going off. And
Mhm.
so when she looked back and realized it wasn't fireworks, she got down underneath her seat in the bus and saw, it was so sad. She saw the football player laid out in the middle of the bus who was shot. And then her and her friend, after Christopher got off the bus, he looked at them and didn't do anything, walked off the bus, and they tried to help the football players that were dead. And so I just think it's really interesting to see that I wasn't able to figure out anything about this Virginia case until a week
Yeah.
later after it happened. And the only posts that were being made about it when it happened the next day was the Instagram post from the football Instagram account. And it
Mhm.
was just like paying the respects to the three football players. And I didn't know what actually happened until a week later when I was able to find that out on TikTok and then see that news segment on Fox. So it's just interesting.
That's super interesting that like the professor noticed his body language and how he was off, like
Yeah.
all before that. And I think like body language is huge, like we've learned about that. But also like
Yes.
the behavior, like she knew he was off, but like didn't say anything or
Yes.
didn't do anything. And then, because what if that professor just talked to him and was like, "Hey, like, are you good? You seem a
You
little
need to go
off."
home, maybe. Like, are you not feeling like maybe just
Yeah.
small things? Because you notice in previous like school shootings, you always notice the murderer of that case always is distance from all
Mhm.
the other groups. So I'm like, if you notice this, why didn't
Right.
you maybe say something to maybe like a security, like I don't know, just say something to someone because I don't know. I feel like when students distance themselves for like a specific like just on purpose, I feel like there's a reason for that. Like there's just
Yeah.
no good comes from that at all. So it's just interesting, like you said, that he was doing that. And the professor noticed, but she didn't do anything about it.
Yeah.
And I know she regrets it now, and she'll probably see it in the future, but like it just sucks because maybe this could have been prevented.
Yeah, no, I agree. I also, with when you were saying TikTok and how you found out like a week later, I was looking at TikTok last night and it like helped with our project because I was searching just like Idaho murder case, and there was this lady, her name is Ashley's in the book. I don't know what that means, but that's her name.
Yeah.
And she's super, super interesting because she got, and I don't know like your beliefs or anything, but I thought it was interesting because she is claiming to know the murder by
Yeah.
tarot cards. Like she did a reading and she was like, this teacher, and she's a professor. The person that's like the suspected murderer, she thinks, is a professor at the school. And the wildest
Wow.
thing is like through all of her TikToks, she is saying that it's a teacher who could have had a like thing with Kaylee, who is one of the victims. And
Okay.
then like Kaylee didn't want it. And so then she got upset and paid someone to do it. I'm like, that is, I mean, I don't know if it's true, but that's crazy. And this woman has like over 80 million views and
Yeah.
like 100 plus like TikToks about it. And
Mhm.
she's pulling like some interesting facts. And so like if you don't fact check yourself, like it could get so bad. But then I'm
Yeah.
thinking, I looked on Reddit and I don't really know anything about Reddit. I honestly thought
Yeah.
it was like a thing for gamers. I don't know why,
Yeah.
but I did. And so I was looking on that and I just typed in Idaho murder case, and
Yeah.
there's over 4,000 people in this one group talking about it. And it
Mhm.
goes in there and says like if it's speculation, if it's news, if
Mhm.
it's discussion, anything like that. But could
Yeah.
you imagine if someone took like that TikTok users like ideas and like facts from her
Yeah.
writing as like truth and started spreading that on social media.
I feel like
That's
TikTok
all
is
you
such
would
a big
see.
platform that it's just like
Yeah.
it's kind of like a clout because she knows everybody's gonna pay attention. If she goes to the
Yes.
news, nobody's gonna give her any right, like no, like any time of day because it's tarot card reading.
Right.
So I feel like she's like, let me do this on TikTok. There's so many young people on TikTok that will eat this up pretty much, and it will go viral.
Yeah.
So I think that's crazy that somebody would even do that. Like this is a serious case and you're really doing posting this on TikTok. Like, yeah, I just think
Well,
that's crazy.
and it makes me think like why um because if I'm being honest, like I was on TikTok and like every four videos was about the case. And so I'm like, did
Yeah,
I just click into something? And that was before I started researching it. But that's how
yeah,
I found out about it was on TikTok. And so I was like, okay, this is really weird. And her videos were popping up more and more. And so I just like swiped over into her profile and I started looking at them. And then it got into
yeah,
the tarot card reading. And I was like, this is so odd, you know? And once I did more
yeah,
digging, like there's so many profiles that um are giving like real updates like from
yeah,
the news and from the police and everything. And so I
yeah,
think it's so interesting because like if you watch some of her TikToks, like she fully believes this. Like she is telling you 100% she knows, and maybe I don't know, maybe she does, but I think it's so interesting on how like that was at the front of my TikTok with what I'm seeing.
yeah,
And since like TikTok is, you're right, such a big platform and there's so many young people on it, like I wonder if our view is kind of changed because of certain
yeah,
videos on TikTok. Because if that's all someone saw and they're like, I know it's this person because of this,
yeah,
like that's crazy. But yeah, you're right. If she went to the news, they'd be like, okay, that's no
yeah.
actual.
No, they would deny her right away. But she has
Yeah.
the freedom to be able to post that on her social media. So
Mhm.
therefore, she's going to do it.
And
And
so
if she gets money from it, like from posting it and getting all those views, she would do it. Like she's going to do it. Like,
exactly. Well, and then it makes me question like why um the media has like really focused on this case? Is it because
yeah,
of how much traction it got on TikTok? Is it
yep,
because like a few videos blew up? Like, why is not as many people talking about the University of Virginia shooting? And then also, like, there was a shooting at UNM that same
yeah,
week. So
yep.
then it's like, do people outside of New Mexico even know that there was
Know
a
about
shooting?
this? Yeah,
There's three shootings the same weekend, or three deaths the same weekend, two of them being a
yes.
shooting, one, yes, a mass shooting, one not.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
like,
yeah.
that's crazy too.
It's still students being killed on campus, on
Yeah.
or off campus, close to the school, but it's crazy how those three cases kind of like got brought up differently
Mhm.
because more like information about the UNM and NMSU case, I'm still getting stuff on my For You page about information about it. It's just like ongoing. It's just crazy. Like how I have like I wouldn't know about it unless we didn't get the text from the
Yeah.
school. So that kind of puts us ahead of other schools knowing or knowledge because we got the text from the school, like, stay out of this area. There was a shooting, blah,
Mhm.
blah, blah. And then we got the email from the
Yes.
UNM
Yeah.
president or something like that. And so it was just crazy. But yeah.
I think that's so interesting too because I don't live on campus, but since I'm still like attending UNM and I'm a
Yeah.
student, I got the email.
Yeah.
But I honestly wouldn't have known because that's not on my For You page. That's not anywhere like where I see the news.
Yep.
And so I honestly wouldn't have known unless my friends, when we were talking about the Idaho case, were also like,
Yeah.
oh, there was a shooting just this past weekend
Yeah.
here. And I was like, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So I think it's interesting, like how the media communicates and like how each person, like their
Figure out
demeanor.
about it pretty much.
Well, yeah. And like from the sheriff, like being his like body and face work being different, like each time he was interviewed. Like,
Yeah.
I wonder if the professor was interviewed like 2 weeks from now, and if the professor from University of Virginia, like her demeanor changed,
Yeah.
you know?
I guess we'll never really know. I mean, like, unless they come out with like the information of who's the murderer, like, I'm interested and I feel like they're kind of keeping it from us just because it's been like 4 weeks of this case just ongoing.
Yeah.
So I just think it's interesting and yeah, I don't know. I hope we find out who it is in the future,
Mhm.
hopefully in the next week, because I would really like to know who it is because we keep on hearing so much more new information about this. But yeah,
Yeah. No, I
yeah,
agree. And I also hope like in the future when it comes to cases like the Idaho one or the Virginia one or even UNM, like
yeah,
we're able to get the information quicker, if that makes sense. And like the
yes,
correct information and like everybody as well.
yes,
I
I
think
agree.
that being communicated and like whether it be through Twitter or TikTok or the news sites, like just
Yeah,
faster
yeah,
and like clear information would be better.
yes, yeah.
Sweet. That was a lot.
That was a lot.
That
That
case
was
is
a
a
lot.
lot, but sweet. Thanks for meeting with me, and I
Of
hope you have
course.
a great rest of your finals.
Thank you. You too. Uh,
Thanks.
I feel like we got